Te reo ererangi o te mānia. This episode was produced in Otatahi by Plains Media, with support from New Zealand On Air.
Hello and welcome to Voices Unhindered. I'm Crystal Jenkinson. On this show, I give a unique perspective and listening ear to voices that often go unheard. I want everyone to know that you are not alone and that your voice and story matters. This week on Voices Unhindered, I'm speaking with Anne-Marie Ferguson, a woman who has overcome her childhood years witnessing neglect, drug addiction, and narcissistic abusive relationships. Anne-Marie has enough evidence to prove the Ministry for Children, now Oranga Tamariki, should have stepped in and helped to care for her and her younger sisters. Hello, Anne-Marie. Do you mind talking a bit about your upbringing and what your childhood was like?
I think just a lot more of how it affects me now in my day-to-day with my own child is the biggest thing for me at the moment I'm going through.
How old's your son?
He's 10. Yeah, he's about to turn 11 and he's awesome. But he's wild like me.
Yeah. And when did you realise there's something wrong?
The connecting with being a parent and the struggle of feeling the emotions of it. I've done counselling now for 5 years through sensitive claims and it is amazing and I recommend it to everybody. It is so good. I've learnt a lot and I've learnt how to not try and repeat what I'd gone through to my own child, which has been very hard.
And do you mind talking a bit about the legal case that you have going on?
So everyone who has been through care can go and put, I think it's called historical claims. So I have done that. There is like a year wait. I think they're behind in like catching up and going through it all. So that will happen eventually. But I've lately noticed the issues around SIFs, Oranga Tamariki.
They used to be SIFs, right?
Yep. So they used to be SIFs. Trying to make them aware. Over the years, we've had a lot of things come into the light in the news about called faith-based historical claims problems. I call them SIFs. I've always just called them that. It's easier. And this is a whole different view on the matter. They neglected us and should have removed us.
Yeah.
And they didn't. They left us there, you know. And I have evidence and just so much stuff where they failed. They failed us.
How did your parents' role play in not allowing them to kind of uplift you guys? Because obviously your mum kind of didn't want to lose care of you guys, but at the same time, she wasn't even able to look after herself, let alone
yeah,
you guys.
And it's so wild because in today's, 2025, you would think they'd step in now. I don't know if they do, but back then they had enough evidence to step in and protect us kids, And
can you just go over some of the evidence? The main points, like with the syringes and then the no food in the house.
I have police records where police have gone and, been called to the house for a disturbance and there's been syringes found and, I don't know what parent it was at the time, but, they've got off on the charge because the cops forgot to read them their rights, And it's like, really? You knew what we were exposed to. Again and again, I've got records, a lot of records that show these things and we were still left there. No matter how much abuse has been written in here or times social workers wrote in my file saying these kids are going to die.
Yeah.
They are going to die. I got through like the first 10 pages and 2 social workers had written this. They're going to die. Do something. And nothing was done. We were left there for another 10, 12 years to go through all of this and the trauma, the neglect, and now the issues I have now was all caused by this. Where were they? They weren't there. But they were supposed to be there. They're a government organisation that was made for this. And everyone can say, oh, it was the parents' job to look after them and stuff like that. No, it was their job when the parents were failing. There was neighbours, there was schools,
and things like that.
principals, principals knew what was going on. They were feeding us at school because we were so starved, We hadn't eaten for 3 or 4 days. And it was too much to deal with. Don't get me wrong, my mum was crazy. She's wild. And I love her very much. But some mistakes were made. And my parents obviously had gone through stuff when they were younger too, which led them to be the way they are. But, you know, having principals and schools not say more of, hey, hang on, this is really serious, you guys need to step in.
When others in authority, like teachers and things like that, would look into your family and then ask you guys, like, hey, how's it going, and wanting to hear from you children, especially you being the oldest, like, did you feel like you could freely talk about what you were experiencing at home? Or did you feel like, oh, my mum or my dad told me not to say this because then, you know, this will happen? Did you feel threatened, like, by...
In your mind, you don't want to say that because you know what's going to happen. You are going to get taken away from your parents and things like that.
And did you want that, or did you kind of fear that?
I think it was a bit of both, you know. As I got older and I went to maybe primary school. I think I was going to primary school at one stage. I remember threatening my mum at like 1 a.m. saying, I'm calling this on you. But maybe I was 10. In my mind, I was like 18 already.
Yeah, wow, you must have grown up so fast.
Yeah, and that's messed me up now.
Yeah.
You know, and trying to have a bond with my own kid.
And being a 5-year-old, like caring for, like, was it like a newborn? Or like
22-month-old, which was, you know, my sister. And, you know, they wouldn't have been looked after properly because I was a child. How can I look after these kids? You know, I love my sisters very, very much, and I wish I could have protected them from anything they ever went through, but I was a child. And I have to accept that too, which is the hard part, because I still don't, I don't think. I still feel like I should have protected them better, and I know that comes up in my own mind, and, you know, it's like, oh, but you were just a kid, but, you know, that eats away at you still now.
Yeah. That false sense of responsibility. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't your job to, like, care for them in that way or protect them.
That's in the file too. You know, like all that's written again and again and again. And what? Where was Oranga Tamariki? You were supposed to come and save us, and you didn't. Why?
Yet they knew. They knew all the red flags were there.
You know, my file that I've got now is probably a quarter of my life. It's 2,000 pages long. And you read the first 10 pages and you're like, oh my gosh, this is wild. And you go down a rabbit hole of how incredible it is, because it's just stuff you see on TV, you know. We've got Once We're Warriors to look at and see what life is like, you know, and we were the same. Yeah. And it doesn't go by culture or anything like that. You know, a lot of people think, I can't forgive my pronunciation, but Maori families, you know, go through this. It's not culture based. It's everybody can go through this, you know, no matter where you come from, and it's very, very sad.
And it's actually not uncommon in New Zealand. Actually, it's quite
bad.
It's very embarrassing.
And I've had to make sure I don't repeat this. I'm telling you now, I'm definitely not perfect. I made a lot of mistakes already, but I'm at a place now where I'm aware of these and trying to, like, make up for them so they didn't get too out of hand.
So just going back to, like, your son and things like that, like when he tells you something, like, about school or about something he's experienced, how do you see his voice, like, as important?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Compared to when you were a child and you didn't really have a voice.
Mm-hmm. You know, one of my early memories is I was doing soccer and my mum couldn't turn up because she was too wasted, and you know, you had to deal with that, or my parents were so wasted they'd turn up to the school playing with everyone, playing handball. Back in those days, it was handball. I think that's what it's called. And, you know, kids would be like, your parents are so cool, rah, rah. And I'm thinking, you do not realise how high they are right now.
Yeah.
You have no clue.
Wow.
You know, I could have gone to school and shown them how to intravenous use drugs that were cooked, or, you know, just silly little stuff like that. And I was in primary school.
Yeah.
You know, I knew how to survive in life more than a 30-year-old man.
Yeah.
You know, but I was only a kid.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy.
And how did you get out of that, like, survival mentality mode? Like, were you in that the most of your life?
Up until I started counselling. I was to the point I probably would have ended up in jail. Because I was just, we grew up where we didn't know how to regulate our emotions.
Yeah.
We were nuts. You know, if something happened, our first reaction was fight. You know, so we were very violent. We did silly things, and that was what we'd watched. You know, if someone wronged my mum, she's going to smash you over. My mum is going to either stab you or smash you over. Yeah. And she'll get away with it because, you know, the system does nothing. But that's what we learnt to be like. So in our mind, we're quite strong-willed people. It says that in our profile. These kids are very strong-willed, you know, but that's because we didn't know how to be any different. And now I had to learn how to be in my soft girl era of not being so manly.
Yeah.
Not so, you know,
Yeah,
in my
you've got
mind.
like a very male, like an energy.
And that's
like
how my mum is.
Masculine energy. Yeah, that's
you
what I
know,
wanted
in
to
my
say.
mind, if something goes wrong, I'm like, I don't need you.
Yeah.
I don't need you one bit. I will fight this out myself.
It
Like,
can kind of push
it's not good
males
though.
away.
Yeah,
like males
it
that
is
wanting
not
to
a
be
good
friends
thing.
with you or something.
I think it's too independent. I don't know the right terminology or stuff. I'm still learning about it all. I've realised now it's not a good thing, but it's like a coping mechanism.
Oh, yeah.
I can always mentally get out of something. Has it not been a big deal, I guess?
And do you think like you learnt that from your mum or just it was just
Yeah.
a survival?
From mum
Yeah.
and a survival way, because we didn't have an emotional connection with our parents either.
Yeah.
So I think that's what led me to not have an emotional connection with my son, because I had postpartum afterwards.
Yeah.
The baby blues.
Depression thing?
Yeah, and I was like, what is wrong with me? Am I like mental?
Like you didn't feel like that bonding with him?
Yeah,
Like,
so
just
I had him.
Did you
and
breastfeed? I don't know. That's
I tried to,
That's good that you tried,
didn't
yeah.
work though.
Because sometimes that can like help with bonding.
Yeah.
And
I tried for 2 years, and I seen a lactation consultant. She's like, you're wasting your time. I was like, fine, you win.
At least you tried. Yeah.
Yeah, like that was very, very hard. But I understand, and I think too it's forgiving myself of why I struggle with these things. Like, you know how you see on TV, you know, mum and dad playing with the kid and they're all happy, laughing.
Happy and lovely.
I can fake that.
Yeah.
But I
get
don't
that.
emotionally feel it on the inside because it feels weird.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing this because I know it's making my kid happy.
Yeah, I get that.
And I can fake it for my kid, but I just don't understand the emotional connection to that feeling.
Yeah.
So
What about being pregnant? Was that like a happy time for you, or like kind of
Not
like
like what we
sure,
think
I'm
it would
scared,
be,
I'm
because I was in trouble with the law at that time, because I was still finding my way of life and making silly decisions. But by the time he turned 2, I'd finally realised, oh my gosh, if I don't change, I'm going to lose my kid.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I would have lost my kid, and there's no one in my family could have taken him, so he would have gone to SIFs.
Wow.
So it was get your shit together, or
When did you have that wake up moment?
Did
something happen, or it was just like?
I think it was with the learning. I went and finally seen a sensitive claims counsellor and was like, oh my gosh. And the more I learned, the more I realised, wow, things are different. I've got a lot to learn and a lot to change.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realise like I was being subjected to narcissistic abuse and things like that because it was normal. That's how we grew up in the household. So if you don't know of these things, you don't know how to change them.
How did you recognise what narcissistic abuse was?
My counsellor taught me.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And was this like in your like relationships with males?
Yeah.
You were actually involved with abuse males?
And I didn't realise, because that's how we grew up. Like my parents smashing each other over and stabbing each other was normal. You know, so my
thought
reaction,
that was love, eh?
Yeah,
And
so
now you're
I
like,
was looking for that in men and was like, if we're not fighting and punching each other out,
It means we don't love
each other. And I got in my new relationship, and it was wild because it was quiet.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've done such a big, lengthy, you know, self-finding with a
Reflection
counsellor.
and
Yeah,
stuff, yeah.
And so getting in my new relationship, I was just like, this is new. Because I said to him, look, we can either go full tits and be nuts and ruin this, or we can try really super hard and do this the right way. And we did. We'd done it the right way. And I still have times now and I'm like, does he love me?
Yeah.
Because we haven't had an argument or something. But we don't argue either. So it's a very big learning path.
I also wanted to ask, did you feel loved and valued as a child? I know it sounds like an obvious question, but like, because you say you love your parents now, but like as a child, did you sense that
Probably not, no. Yeah. They can say it, and I think that's the hard thing. I say it for my son because I love my son and I'll protect my son through anything, you know. I think too it's hard because when we watched mum do this, her way of protection and love was violence. So when a situation happened where I felt my son was wronged, my reaction is, oh, you're going to do that, I'm going to do this.
Oh, yeah.
And so I have to think smart every interaction with anybody, not to scream and yell and get physical, and I have to do it the right way. And then I start going crazy in my own mind, like, you're not protecting your kid, you're not lashing out. So it's a mental thing, all because of what I went through as a kid. But if I do it the professional way and go down the right avenues and do it how a normal person would, I feel like I'm not living up to protecting him.
Yeah.
So it is so hard being like
it's
that.
It's good to be protective, but not like to the point you'd be like hitting someone else or whatever.
But that was our first thing of how to do it. That is how you protect your family. My mum would come down to school and punch teachers out.
I can relate.
Yeah.
And that's
she hit
completely
kids.
Embarrassing. Was that embarrassing for you as a kid?
I don't remember a lot of it.
Did you remember shame?
But I remember her being scared. Everyone being scared of my mum.
Yeah.
And I look at it now and I'm like, wow.
Yeah, it's like funny looking back probably, but then at the time it wouldn't be funny.
No, like, mum, chill, bro, But it makes me sad too, because I look at it and I think, my poor mum, back in those days, obviously, help was there, but not the type of help we have now. Yeah. And if my mum had have got that little bit of what we could get now, I feel like she would have been a different person. There could have been that little bit of a chance for her and my dad.
Like
my
dad was struggling inside. Yeah.
She'd been. I know she has been through things. When she was younger and stuff like that. I don't know everything, but I think too, in my mind, I look at myself and I'm like, but you did the work. You're not like that. And so I struggle to understand the whole addiction side of it as well.
Did you struggle with any drug addictions?
Not really, only because I had my parents as an example to not be like that.
It can either make you go into it or make you go the other way. I feel like.
I was never. Don't get me wrong, I've probably used everything you could think of, but the attachment to it isn't there. It's a recreational thing back in those days of and before I had my son, it was like, oh, well, there's nothing else to do. You've got no life goals. You're not going anywhere. Wow. My dad wanted me to be the biggest drug dealer there was.
That was his ambition.
And I remember how excited he was when he found out that I was.
Oh, wow.
But that is not how we do things.
Yeah.
So it's very different.
And how's your relationship with your parents now? Do you mind me asking?
I'll talk to my dad. I haven't spoken to my mum yet. Yeah. I think she needs to do some work on herself, for herself.
Yeah.
I love her dearly and I love my dad dearly, but they just got too many problems. And so to protect myself and to protect my son, I have to keep them at arm's length.
Healthy people around them. Yeah, no, I totally relate to the boundaries.
And it sucks because I'd love to have them around and do all that family stuff we see, but it's never, ever, ever going to be like that. And they are going to die soon. Dad's full of cancer. I don't even know how much right now, and it eats me up a little bit because I physically can't go and interact with him as much as I'd like to make up for what I'm going to miss because he's still the way he is.
You mean he's still got those cycles that you're trying to keep your son away from?
Yeah.
If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking with Anne-Marie Ferguson, a woman who has overcome childhood years witnessing neglect, narcissistic abusive relationships, and a home filled with drug addictions. Anne-Marie says she has enough evidence now to prove that former SIFs, now Oranga Tamariki, should have stepped in and helped Anne-Marie and her younger sisters. And just growing up, about the narcissistic abuse, did you experience not towards like each other, your mum and dad, but more towards you guys? Like, did you experience that narcissistic, like, kind of like, oh, if you do that, I'll do this, or like, don't tell anyone about this, or like?
We were raised against each other.
Like,
so we don't have a bond, me and my sisters.
Kind of like your parents turned you guys against each other?
Yeah. So we
I can relate to that.
Are related and we have the same blood, but we aren't really sisters. You know, it feels like that because of what we went through as when we were younger, you know. You're a good girl, you're better than the other one, you know.
I totally relate to that. That's narcissistic because that's exactly what I experienced with my, I don't want to say it, but I know that that's what I know now, what it was. Yeah, and I didn't know that at the time. So we went through that, and now I'm older, I'm like, I fucking love my sisters to death. And
there's a lot of emotion in all of that, you know, it's a whole nother story. But my parents raised us in such a wild way. When we went to SIFs, we all asked to be split up because of it. And so we were.
Oh. How long was this for, like, that you were split up for?
I think the rest of our lives, really, after that. I think me and one sister might have been put together for a little bit. And then, you know, she went in a different way and then I went a different way. But there's never been like that. There's never been no closeness. And that's what I've been trying to build on the last few years. But it is so tricky because each one of us sisters are going through something different.
And have a different perspective.
Yeah.
Because of, like, what you were taught, like, the influence of, like, those around you.
Because we still have to go through it now. You know, Dad said this about one of us. Mum said this about one of us.
I totally get it. And it's like, sometimes it's not true. Like, often it's not true. It's like slander. It's
it's not true.
It's like, hey, the lies goes all the way back to
you.
And
then I've got one sister ringing me and she's like, why did you tell the Dad this? And I'm like, I didn't say anything.
Yes, I totally relate to that.
Or it's been twisted and I'm like, oh, that cheeky bugger.
It can create such a, like, coldness between you, and it's like...
And it's so hard because I want a relationship with my sisters too, you know, because we missed out on it. But my parents can't do that.
Did that happen from a young age, do you think? Like that turning against each other?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my gosh, you just reminded me of a memory I had, like, when me and my brother were playing, like, in the lounge. This is my birth mother. She, like, was obviously into drugs and all that, and, like, my brother fell off as we were playing and he just cried, and she just ran down the hallway and, like, smacked me. And I remember, like, bleeding on my leg as a kid, but, like, afterwards I was only like 4, and I was like, why don't you find out what happened? Like, I did not touch him
into it,
instead of just, like, smack me. And even my little brother's like, why? Like, he couldn't talk, but, like, I'm sure he was, like, agreeing with me. Like, why don't you, like, find out the problem, not just run down and assume it was me and then smack me. It's almost like she was, like, ready to, like, get me.
You.
And I was like, and she's like, yeah, maybe I should do that. And I was like, how can a 4-year-old be, like, smarter than a, like...
Yeah. I don't know.
But it must be the drugs and all that did her head in, eh? And I don't even know where my dad was at the time. He faced a lot of depression and he wasn't really with it. Like, when she was around, she drove him quite very insane. Cause,
my parents did it to each other. They were as bad as each other.
Do you have any, like, flashback memories of, like, stuff like that? It's like, hey, that's out of it, like that.
I don't know. I think there's just too many because I've been talking about all of this the last couple of days, and it's like you just go down a rabbit hole and you can spend hours on it, and it's like you got to remind yourself, hey, step back from it. You've got some other stuff to do, you know. And so there's just so much information. I wish I could, like, dive in, but I've also got to protect my sisters at the same time too.
Yeah, yeah. You sound like you were, like, a very protective older sister and.
Oh, definitely.
Wait, how many siblings do you have? Sorry. Sisters and brothers?
I've got 2 full sisters, 1 half sister and 1 half brother.
Oh, yeah. And did the half ones kind of grow up with you or not?
No.
In the house? Oh, yeah.
The half older sister, she has passed away now. She was in SIF's care because my dad gave her up.
Oh, yeah.
So she was, you know, she had a very rough time and it's so sad. And I've got an older step brother and he lives in Aussie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've met him once. He's pretty cool.
And how did you believe those who were supposed to step in and help you fail you guys? I know it's an obvious question, but like, what do you think should have been done? And, like, you did go into SIFs at one point and...
Yeah, they should have uplifted us.
Yeah.
You know, I was born in 1991. There was notifications coming through in 1993. So from 1993, I think, to, like... 2010 or something like that I've got up to. The notifications is absolutely wild. Like, you'll find notifications in there that say, you know, someone's rang up and done an anonymous tip and things like that, and a social worker's written back and, oh, there's not enough to go on by. You know, this social worker's just told you, this notifier's just told you that they've witnessed physical, verbal, the kids aren't being fed, like, how is this not enough? You know, and then a week later another one comes in. I don't want to sound
rude, but do you think they were scared of your mum? You know how you said everyone's scared of your mum? Like, maybe she just didn't want them to take you and then she'd be like...
SIFs was such a bad thing back in those days.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it wasn't so much protecting the kids. Yeah. SIFs was something you didn't want to be involved in. And I feel like that's why
Yeah.
that view might have been there. Like there's records of physio people and doctors and police and all this in these files saying, hey, this is pretty bad. There's drugs, There's social workers have gone to what are they called? Meetings. You know how they go visit the family?
Yeah.
And I don't know how long ago the law changed about smacking and stuff. And they've walked in and, one of the kids has been smacked by the mother. And my own mum has been into SIFs and said, hey, I am not coping. Help me. What? Nothing. They didn't just fail me, they failed my parents too.
Yeah.
If we had been removed from them, I think we would have gone to a home and been raised differently, and my parents would have seen us when we were older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead,
we were subjected to this abuse because SIFs didn't come and save us.
Yeah.
And they should have.
Wait, what was the age you said that you were kind of separated from your sisters?
I think intermediate. So maybe 12.
And did you say like you kind of were away for a bit and then you came back into the
we
area?
moved around heaps. Like so we had been in SIFs and we had gone and been in other places. There's over 14 official notifications to SIFs. We moved 15 times in 5 years, and they're just the ones noted. The file that I see now is a quarter of my life. So
you've been through so much when I read stuff. I wonder how you're like alive today. It's like a miracle.
Well, SIFs wrote that themselves.
Did they?
Yeah, these kids are going to die. And that was back in 19-something.
You look like you're doing well. Like you're quite confident.
Definitely. But I've always been like this. From age 5, I was like this.
Yeah.
So I learned how to be like that. I was reading this morning and there it says Emery's 5-year-old's just come home from school and she's taken the responsibility of changing and looking after the kids and feeding them.
Yeah.
Bro, I was 5.
That's amazing.
I look at my son and I'm like, mate, you can't even make your noodles. You can't even make your wheat bix this morning. You couldn't put your milk in your porridge. Like, how was I doing that at 5 years old? And why did SIFs not see that as such a bad thing, And
they just like wrote like, the mum said the 5-year-old's taking care of all the responsibilities.
Yeah.
And
it's like they kept a diary. And it made me think the other day, like I've seen a few things on YouTube now and again of back in the old days how they used to do studies on twins who were raised different and things like that. If they were going to put us through all this trauma, they should have done at least a study on it. To protect the next lot of people going through stuff, why was this just a diary about our life and not...
Do you think your mum like struggled with like self-hate, kind of like shame and guilt, and it was kind of like a cycle?
Yeah, I believe deep down she knew what we were going through wasn't right, and I believe she would have changed it if she knew how. She doesn't have the tools I've had now to be able to do these and try and make my life better.
And you see her like as a victim herself.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Both of them, her and my dad. My dad was put on morphine script at the age of 3 when he broke his ankle. I think it was 3, it's an age like that, and from there he had a drug problem.
Wow.
And that just went on.
And you know a bit about your mum as well, like her background.
She had, a rough upbringing too, and I understand why she came to New Zealand. She just fell victim to my dad's narcissistic abuse. I love my dad, but he was a bit, he was in the wrong. And my mum, I guess, just wanted to do right. And I get where that's coming from because I was the same. I was thinking to myself, but I'll just stay for my son, and I'll just deal with it. But that doesn't work.
Yeah,
you have to leave and go fix yourself. And they weren't strong enough to do it.
How do you feel about looking back at your notes, especially like being 5 years old, like caring for your siblings?
I find it empowering because now I can fight and try and bring out all this history that hasn't changed. This is further on from the faith-based care, and what everyone went through back in those days. This was only the 90s and the 2000s.
Do you mind me asking, is that to do with the Catholic homes?
Yeah, there was a lot of trauma to all cultures back then. And that was shocking.
Like sexual abuse.
Yeah.
A lot of it.
And
that was kind of hush-hush.
Yeah, and nothing changed. They were still carrying this on later. Neglecting kids and leave them to be abused in these homes. which was my home, but...
Did you stay in the faith base?
No.
Oh, yeah.
No. Not that I know of. I was never locked up either.
Yeah.
But my sisters might talk one day about what they went through and they might not.
Mm.
Hopefully me bringing it up, I see that I can empower the next person to say something, have SIFs look into this, because this stuff can't be ignored. This is really, really bad stuff.
And do you... Oh, no, I think I've asked that before. Were you, quite shut down as a kid,
Yep.
emotionally and...
Yep, I would not have probably said anything until I was on the run. I think I went on the run when I was 15. 15, I think I did. The cops didn't catch me for a year. And then I met a lot of the street kids and, I don't know, I woke up. I turned into a fighter.
Yeah.
And
did you just live, on the street or anywhere?
Yeah.
Wow.
They tried to put me in a home and they caught me one night and they put me in a home and I cut the poor lady's phone line so she couldn't ring up on me, and I walked all the way back to Parklands.
Oh.
And I feel so guilty now, and I apologise to that poor lady, but I don't know, I was just a teenager and in my mind I was older, and I was always stuck in this body of a 12-year-old and I was 23, because I'd already done everything. And I say that now, my friends and they're doing all this wild stuff. I'm like, mate, I did that when I was 10.
Yeah.
I want a quiet life now. I've done all that.
Yeah.
So I enjoy my peace now.
Is there anything else you wanted to add? Oh yeah, about your son and the way you raise him, and things resurfacing, the bonding. How have you?
You just need to be aware of it, eh? Otherwise, you will repeat these cycles.
Yeah,
because I do it now in my language and the way I speak. I'm still a
your
yeller.
son like he's an adult, kind of. Is that kind of what
in a way? Sometimes I think to myself, he feels like a flatmate. He's living there, and I have to remind myself, no, that's my child that I need to
train and
care for and protect. And I have to remind myself, no, you can't treat him like he's your mate. He's your kid, and he's got a great life. Don't get me wrong, but I just wish I wasn't so mentally effed in the head that I could have caught on to these things a little bit sooner. And I know I've done it, maybe sooner than most people, but I just wish I didn't really go through all that rubbish.
Yeah.
That's all. But, maybe it was a test so I could fight for the next person who has been through it.
Yeah, you seem like a very strong person, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And when you talk about what you've been through, it's that's why you're the way you are.
Yeah, definitely.
And how do you, I don't want to talk about, unless you want to speak about your relationship with your mother, but what do you hope will happen in the future with you guys?
I hope she realises that it's never too late to go and get help and talk to someone and dive into all the hard things that have made her the way she is, because then she might get some peace later on.
Were you quite empathetic as a little girl?
Yeah.
You were very
too much.
You kind of understood that your mum was struggling and your dad was struggling a lot, and
I think I just didn't understand it. I don't know, because I was raising them.
Yeah,
and that's the hard thing. I was raising them, so I raised 2 kids and 2 parents as a child, and that's probably why hate came out everywhere. And because I was the way I was, even after I went into SIFS care, I still didn't get the help I needed. You're just a kid put in a home. There's no, and they can say there was, I don't get me wrong, they've written it that there is, but there was no understanding of why I was the way I was. I was expected to go and play. I'm like, how the heck do you go and play? What do you mean play?
Did you feel like you missed out on your childhood?
Yeah, because I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to go and socialise with kids to do that, because I didn't do that. I'm going to go play with someone on a trampoline. I got other shit to do. I got to go make sure my sister's been fed or, stuff like that. I don't want to go and play.
Yeah,
go to an event. And do what? So it was very difficult. And SIFs need to realise this. For kids that have been subjected to having to step up into this role, they need help. But because I was the good one, I was known to be the good one, who said nothing, done nothing. You know, when I was suicidal and calling out for help and things like that, it wasn't looked on the way it would have been if one of the other kids was doing it. You know, like, I probably should have been put away into a place now and again because I needed help. But the school counsellor said what was the words they used? I had to leave the school or something like that because I was too mentally unstable. So I had to leave the school. Did you not realise I was so mentally unstable and needed to leave the school because I was acting out because I was so effed in the head? You know? I wasn't just being naughty.
No.
I'd finally come down to the crunch that I was, like, full. My brain was full and needed to get out. And instead I ended up running away and living on the streets and being a dickhead, really. Because what else do you do? You're not being heard anywhere.
Did you struggle with resentment towards your parents? Like, because of your choices, you forced me to have to step into this role of being like a mother to my siblings and like such a young age, and like I missed out on my childhood because of you. And
I don't think so.
Oh, that's amazing.
I think it's just more of like, at the moment, understanding why I'm like this, why my parents are like that. I don't recall. That probably was there though, like in the younger days.
Anger? Did you struggle with anger? Like,
oh yeah, I'd headbutt
rage?
someone and I didn't even remember doing it. I got into a fight with someone one time and I'd headbutt them and I was like, I looked at them and I thought, why are you bleeding? I haven't even touched you yet. And I'd headbutted them and didn't even remember it. And I was like, oh my God, I need to go get help. This is way before my son was around.
Yeah.
And I went to anger management, but I went like 2 or 3 times because it just wasn't sinking in enough, you know, as it needed to. But it had got to the point where I'd black out. And I thought to myself, if I don't do something now, I'm going to end up in jail.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm clearly not remembering what I'm doing to people.
And you weren't on drugs at the time, right?
No.
It was just...
Nah, that was just anger. That was just your brain is at such a capacity of you need help.
And did they do anything serious, or was it just like a little thing that kind of triggered like what was building up in you kind of?
I think that was dealing with narcissist people, really.
Oh, it was like a relationship scenario. Oh, I see. Yeah.
Definitely. But I'm not like that now. I can think about it now and I'm like, you do this, you're going to go and mess your life up.
I feel like that's like when you're in a relationship, like that's when all the toxic stuff comes out, like...
And I was just repeating the cycle.
In you and the yuck stuff in them, and it just like... Ugh.
And I was repeating it. But that was normal. That is what we do in relationships. You know? It's actually not.
Yeah.
And I have to try and now raise my son to not deal through that. You know, I might have failed at the start, but I can fix and put the things in place for him. You know, counselling or... his sports and, you know, don't get me wrong, New Zealand is so behind in everything kids need at the moment. Like, everything, there's a wait list for everything. It's very sad. But at least I've done as much as I can, you know.
And how else do you, like, reverse those cycles, like, with your son? Is there anything else you want?
Forgiveness. I need to forgive myself that I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
And I need to be perfect.
How have you done that, like, been able to... Was that hard, like forgiving
I have to
yourself?
say it to myself because only now I'm realising why I am the way I am. I just always thought I was mental in the head, like you just, you know, like your parents in a way sort of thing. But I don't know, I have to forgive myself. I'll go to bed and I'll beat myself up. I hold myself like I get told all the time, you're too hard on yourself, you're too hard on yourself. And it's very hard not being like that. You know, if I do something wrong, I used to grill myself for days on it.
And that's because of your upbringing, how you were trained to be.
Yeah, you know, with such violence and abuse and neglect and trauma, and when you go through all that, like so many people would look at me now, the way I am now, the way they've met me the last few years, and they wouldn't have an utter clue the story that I've got, you know. And that's why I look at some people and I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, I've done everything you're doing. I've done it. I say to people now, I deserve my peace. You know, you got what you've got out of me now. Now I'm giving myself and my peace to my kid and my partner and everything like that.
Yeah, and I want to talk about how you're like enjoying your life now as a like trying to relive your childhood.
That's exactly what I'm doing. I said to my son this morning, I was like, Mum is on a roll. I think there's a bit of ADHD in there. I am waiting for to look into a diagnosis. My son has ADHD. My dad has ADHD and my sister has ADHD. So it's very in there. But now I'm older. I was very timid, like back in the day. I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't say anything. And then I'd act out and I'd be a nutcase. I was so
like two
nuts.
different people?
Yeah. And that's why I always got confused.
Did people think you were shy, like as a kid kind of? Or
as a kid, yes.
Wow.
When our parents were around. But then later on, I think I was just more violent.
The opposite, yeah.
Yeah, because you hit breaking point. And when you've got all these emotions, because I didn't learn how to regulate my emotions until like the last few years with counselling.
Wow.
I was just mental in the head and just next level, and now I can do it. It's fixed everything.
Tell me about how you're enjoying your child.
I'll do everything I can get my hands on, It first started... I was always shy and didn't think I could do things. And now it's like, I've seen these girls in a rockabilly dress. I'm going to go do that. Went and did it. I see the girls doing skid comps and the guys doing skids in your car legally, not illegally.
Okay, yeah. Yes.
And now I'm building a skid car to go and do that. I just want to show my son that you might be shy and everything like that, but who cares? Just do it. Because that could encourage the next person to do it.
And tell me about your business, like what you're...
Oh, yes. It's going to be so much fun. I'm keeping a little bit of it hush-hush, but it's to help everyone in the car community. It's just going to benefit us all. It's going to be so cool and so fun. It's just so hard and a lot of work because I do 10 things at once.
Yeah.
I've got the business. I've got my son's business. I've got a business for him in the works. Sure. We've got a watch invention we're creating. We've got the skid car we're trying to build, and we've got that diploma we're doing. So I don't do things one at a time.
Yeah.
But I've finally learnt my management. So, I used to act out back in the day and I'd drink and end up in court. I'd end up in court. Oh my gosh, so much. I'd be arrested 3 times a week. Like, it was really, really bad because I'd go good and then I'd dive and then I'd go good and I'd dive, not realising how to get it stable and not realising, hey, there might be another reason why you're like this.
Yeah.
So learning about all of that has helped. Now I'm balanced, and when I've had too much of building my car, I'm like, okay, I'll go focus on my assessment.
Oh yeah.
So
cool.
I can manage everything now,
cool.
and then when I have an off day, it's acknowledging, hey, I'm having an off day.
Oh yeah.
Take some time, chill out. I'm going through this file the other day. I was a little bit upset, and don't get me wrong, it gets me angry because I've wasted the whole day being upset. But it's reminding yourself, okay, this is an off day. I'm having a bad day. It's okay to cry. Get it out, and then tomorrow, move on to the next thing and keep checking these things off the list and keep pushing through because I don't want to run out of time.
Yeah. And do you think that's like what you're doing now with your business? Do you think that's kind of like reliving your like childhood?
I think this is maybe going to be my passion because I haven't found my thing yet. Yeah. I've done a lot of things, I've done a lot of politics and anything a man can do, I can do.
Yeah.
I'm like that.
Yeah.
I've done my truck driving. I've done
that's so cool.
So much
I can
things.
see you doing that.
Yeah, I've done a lot. I have done a lot, and I'll play dumb, but I know a lot.
Talk about that masculine energy, like a little bit, like because I told
there.
you, like, but you're trying to be more soft now.
Yes,
like,
the soft girl era. Peaceful and not 10 foot tall is very hard. Very hard.
How have you been more aware of it, like, recently?
I noticed I need to do it with my replies to my partner.
Yeah.
I notice it comes out more in situations where there could be an argument.
Oh, yeah.
Or things like that, but that's just the usual thinking of obviously what we'd been through.
Yeah.
So if I can see it, I can rein it back in, and it's like, no, don't talk about it. Go take 5, and no one wants to take 5. No one wants to call off. We want to argue.
Yeah.
But I have to do it because once we get into that path of violence that goes so far, there's no coming back from that. You can say sorry and everything like that, but we will not be able to come back from that. And I was very strict on that from the get-go of getting together. Cool. We will not go to that level. We've been there. We've done that. Yeah. Now let's do this the right way. And we're always going to have slip-ups and stuff like that, but I must say we've done a good job.
That's cool. Yeah.
definitely done a good job.
Because in the past, you just like fight it out.
I probably would have smacked its face.
Yeah. So.
And I wouldn't have felt bad about it.
Wait, tell me about your relationship with women. Did you struggle to like talk, like relate to women with that kind of energy? Or did you like meet women that were kind of like had that masculine energy as well?
I think it's hard because I have trouble keeping friends and making friends. I stick to myself.
Eh?
Yeah.
Yep.
So my dad will stick to himself too, and I'm exactly the same. I won't talk to you for a month, you know. But I'm not always doing that out of. I forgot because I've been busy doing something else, or I enjoy my company. So it's both.
Yeah.
You know. But I've got some friends, and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't spoken to you in a year. You know. But it wasn't intentionally. It was like it's my fault because I didn't make the time, and I should have.
Is that do you feel like there's a label though? Like, you know how you can label people like, oh, they're like that, and then they live up to that? Like,
yeah, so I don't want to live up to it.
Yeah.
And that's why I've put all these things in place to not live up to it. I've found ways to manage. I've found ways, which I didn't know these before.
Because it can be limiting, like if you believe, like,
and
I'm
that's
ADHD,
why,
I can't do that.
That's
or,
exactly why I'm teaching my son
That's
this,
so cool.
you know, so that he doesn't think that he's broken.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. You know, in my mind, my whole life, I've got a best friend, and he's so cool. You know, he said to me one day, you know, why don't you want to hang out with these people? And I was like, mate, I don't fit in with these people. You know, because I still do it now, and I don't mean to do it, but I still think so low of myself that, you know, I don't belong where I am because I came from utter shit, and I believed that I deserved utter shit, and I think that's why I put myself through so much. Where obviously that's not the case, but it still sits there. It's like the devil on your shoulder.
Oh yeah,
and I think that's
why insecurity. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, like sitting there thinking, you know, I'm going to have a business one day. Like, how you were a nobody, you know, how are you going to get there? And so it's the head games in your own head. You've got to shut down
your beliefs about yourself. Yeah,
it'll be amazing, to be honest. You know.
And bring awareness.
Things actually need to change. Like, this can't just be a sorry. This has to be like, you need to make things change in the court of law, sorry.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you there's another kid out there who's been through worse than me. We got put in another home after we got uplifted again. And we were there saying about, you know, one of the, I don't know how I can say this without like getting too far in it, but we were making a social worker aware that something was going on in the place they placed us.
Oh, yeah.
The social worker wrote in the file, the kids are just lying. They're known for acting out. Hello, we are telling you that something dodgy is going on, and we should know what dodgy is because we've already experienced dodgy. But hang on, let's leave them there. In the end, we had to run away to get away. And then we were moved.
Yeah.
You know, but by then we'd already gone through whatever we were going through then, you know. Like, why is a social worker allowed to say, oh, they're known to be naughty, we're not going to believe them? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And I think, too, it's so hard to try and even get this stuff out here. You know, we're lucky now that we can do this. But also, how do we do this in a way where it's not going to be, I don't know, used against us, even though we're speaking on things we can see and we've experienced and there's evidence?
Yeah.
You know? Maybe just that we can't sit here and make out that Oranga Tamariki didn't have a role, you know, in this. They needed to uplift us and remove us, and they didn't. They failed to protect us. So how many other kids out there got failed? They still did wrong, and they should be held accountable for it.
Do you feel like there was anyone that you had that advocated for you as a child, or like, nah, like not even
Myself.
teachers? Yeah, that's what you felt like.
Just me.
Yeah, I got that from you. Yeah.
And now I have to do it for the next person, and I will.
Now you've got such a strong voice and you're such a strong personality. I feel like people have to listen to you.
Well, I've never mentioned any of this because, you know, when you do try and dive into this, to find out where to go, you can ring community law or the citizens' advice or stuff like that, and you're going to get told
that voice place.
It's going to be told, oh, I don't know, you know, I don't know who to talk, and then it's like you can go see a lawyer, but it's going to cost you thousands. You know, it's going to cost you your house payment by the end of it. That's going to take 5 years because they're going to string it out that long, so you're broke at the end of it. You know, so what do? We don't say nothing.
Yeah, that's
no
right.
way.
No,
that's not it. I'll say something.
True, yeah.
And I'll find the right ways to say something.
Yeah, you're very blunt. I love that.
It's got to happen now, you know. I feel like I've done a lot of work on myself these 5 years.
Yeah.
That I'm getting to a place where I'm strong enough to do this for
That's
myself
cool.
and for my sisters if one day they choose to, because I love them very dearly, and you know, I'm sorry they went through what they went through. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it was so lovely to have you. Well,
Yeah, we got this.
thank you for listening to Voices Unhindered. It's great hearing from my listeners. Reach out with questions and comments through Insta or Facebook. Just search for Voices Unhindered. I'm interested to know what other topics and voices you'd like me to bring on the show. Join me every Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. on Plains FM 96.9. You can find past episodes at plainsfm.org.nz and subscribe to Voices Unhindered on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to never miss an episode.